TSPN Media Days here, thrilled to be joined by first-year girls cross-country coach Ellis Mumford, also a Trinity graduate class of 2016. And it seems to me the most obvious question is for you, who was an athlete in this program, what must seem like not too long ago, to now be heading this program. Just what does that feel like to now be the head coach of the girls cross-country?
It's exciting. I think the program obviously gave me a lot in terms of growth as an athlete, but then also as a person, and kind of inspired in me a passion for running and a passion for kind of encouraging others, which I think as a cross-country coach is part of sort of the biggest role in a way, is just to be a supporter of the girls as they develop as runners. So I'm just really excited to kind of carry on that tradition of a close-knit team and that tradition of support, just resulting in growth throughout the season.
So we're several weeks into the training, but you haven't, I guess, competed yet. Who are some athletes who've really emerged just as leaders that you, particularly as a first-year coach, can really lean on to show, whether it's in a vocal way or just through their actions, that they're the leaders on this group?
Yeah, so we have a returning senior who's her 5th year, Sarah Coleman, who had a breakout track season, indoor track season last year, I would say, and so we're excited to see what she'll bring to cross-country. She's been really solid on the team and shown consistent growth for the past 5 years. And then our other seniors in Sidney, Ragsdale, and Leia Alayubi are just so consistent and setting a great example through their actions and their words for the younger girls. So I think they'll really be steering this team and helping us through the transition in coaches, as well as rising sophomore Molly Heston ran in our LIS and state meet last year and is really stepping up to the plate so far in practice. I'm excited to see what her season will hold going forward.
So last question, full disclosure, have had the pleasure to have also coached you when you were here on the soccer field, as well as coached with you last spring in our girls soccer staff. And I thought you did an incredible job, and it was such a pleasure to have the opportunity to share that responsibility with you. But I am curious, because you also played soccer at the college level, just like what are the big differences for you with coaching cross country versus coaching soccer?
That's a really good question, and something I think about a lot actually with soccer. I think as a coach, there's so much more in ways that you can control, right? So even if you can't be on the field yourself, with formation, with positioning, with subbing, there's kind of a lot that you can do even during a game to change the outcome. In cross country, I think it's a lot of kind of setting the precedent and then having that trust in your athletes. So I think really asking those athletes to be more self-motivated and have the integrity, because at the end of the day, if they don't do what they're asked to do, you can't always see it and know. So you trust that when you put them on the line and the race starts, you can't make any subs at that point. You can't change the game plan. So you have to believe in the training you've been doing at practice and believe in those athletes to kind of carry out the mission of the team and represent well.
Yeah, well, knowing the character of the athletes that you have in that group, I think you got an amazing group of young women who will do just that and keep all those traditions alive. And also just congratulations to you on this new position, and I know it's going to go great this year and beyond. So you heard it here, Ellis Mumford, class of 2016, and now back head coach, girls cross country. Thanks, Ellis.
Thank you.
I am excited to be joined here by senior girls cross country runner and Sidney Ragsdale. And the first question, I'm asking a lot of the seniors this, just how would you describe your leadership style? And obviously different sports have much different skill sets, and yours is in some ways the most individual sport you can imagine, but also you guys seem to have an awesome team dynamic as well. So how do you as a leader just describe your style?
Yeah, so our cross-country team this year is very young, and since it's such a mentally grueling sport, I mean physically grueling as well, but especially it just really breaks you down mentally, I think it's important to really put an emphasis on encouragement and building a positive team culture, which is something that we're working really hard on this year, just to make sure that we're prioritizing our relationships as teammates and encouraging each other and just building up a family.
So you are on the honor committee, right?
Yes.
And have been for several years. So you're very much a student leader. I think also very involved in Model UN. I'm quite sure you are a great student. And I've noticed a lot of times there seems to be a crossover between some of our best student leaders and a lot of them happen to do cross country. Can you explain what it is about this sport that seems to produce these well-rounded student athletes?
Yeah, it's definitely a phenomenon that I've noticed myself. I think a lot of it has to do with mindset and attitude and just work ethic in general. Like I mentioned before, cross country is really grueling physically and mentally, and in order to be successful at it, you need to have that work ethic and that just tough mental attitude, which has a lot of crossover between good academics and just strong leadership qualities in general. So I think that's generally where it comes from.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a great answer. Finally, last question. You've been part of this program now for 4 years. I'm curious, who's maybe someone who you looked up to who was an older athlete that's now graduated that maybe you seek in some ways to emulate, or just someone for whom you had a tremendous amount of respect?
I think definitely class of 2022 senior Kayla Quigley. She was a phenomenal runner, and she definitely had her fair share of hardship, but she was always very consistent in her work ethic, and her attitude always remained positive, and so that's something I really looked up to. And then a lot of our runners in previous years, or just team members in general, haven't necessarily been able to run due to injury, but they've still showed up. They've still been consistent, and they've still helped us build this family atmosphere that me and the other seniors are trying to continue. So people like Ellie Madigan and Charlotte Roof, who, even though they couldn't necessarily run or participate in the sport, they were still super consistent and here for us, and I think that's a great attribute that we should all try to emulate. So.
Well, that's great. We're here is to a healthy season and continuing to build on that family atmosphere that you described, and I know you'll be a huge part of that. So, Ann, Sidney, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.